Welcome to the Fan2Fan Podcast 5 Minute Frights, wherein, give or take 5 minutes, we'll try to share something creepy, kooky, mysterious, spooky, something fun and frightful that you can add to your to-watch queue as we all get ready for Halloween season. My name is Bernie Gonzalez, and on this episode, co-host Pete Charbonneau shares one of his frightful favorites, the 2007 found footage horror movie that became a phenomenon, Paranormal Activity.
High-def camera on. My girlfriend Katie, she thinks there's something in the house. I don't know.
You believe me, right?
Doors are locked, alarm is on. If anything walks through here, it's gonna leave a pretty good footprint.
Paranormal Activity, rated R.
Please, 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 please.
So, Pete, I think it's probably fair to say there's different types of subgenres in horror. Like you get the gothic horror, the body horror, George Romero's zombies, vampires, werewolves. And then 1999 comes along and it kind of sets up found footage because of the success of Blair Witch. And when I think of movies like White Noise or Premonition, they're all on the backs of Sixth Sense. Paranormal Activity exists because of Blair Witch. When did you see this movie for the first time? Like, how did you see this movie? How did you see Paranormal Activity?
This movie definitely exists because of Blair Witch Project, which is another favorite of mine. I mean, I think there's parallels with this, with how this series went on, and Blair Witch was a phenomenon until it became like, this is terrible. I don't know how people can like this. Nothing happens. You don't see anything. And this series has kind of progressively gotten weirder and I would argue worse than the initial entry, which is what I want to talk about. But you asked when I first saw it. I saw this in the theater when it came out. My friend Thomas and I went to see it. And I think one of the things that elevated this to something that I wanted to talk about was the fact that you have this device in the film. You're seeing the couple sleeping on camera, and then the footage speeds up through the night, and then it stops, and then you hear this low rumble audio build and build. And I just remember sitting in the theater, and the theater was packed, and you just felt every time that low audio started to build, you just felt the tension in the theater tighten up. And as the film ramps up and more stuff happens, leading the audience to the breaking point where people were shouting, people were yelling. And it was that film-going experience that I think all of us love so much and have experienced at different times in the past, but I had not experienced in that way in a very long time. That stuck with me. And, we walked out like laughing hysterically, just not at the film, but just at the reaction that it evoked in its audience. And I thought that was a wonderful thing. It's been a while since I've seen it. It's probably been a couple of years, but I do think it holds up. Again, this one has gotten maligned as the series has gone on. I thought that the original was an interesting idea. I thought that it was a very compact idea with the devices that were used to kind of ratchet up the tension, ratchet up the horror, the subtle little things of the door closing, and it really guided the audience along. And I thought it was just very effective. I'm a horror movie fan. I like to be scared. I like that experience of being thrilled. And as I've gotten older and I've had this conversation with a bunch of friends, it becomes harder and harder to evoke that scare factor out of me. It's one thing to do a jump scare. Of course, that's going to make anyone shake, even if you're kind of expecting it. That's kind of a cheap technique. But to be able to ratchet up tension, to build the dread, show without showing, to allow your brain to kind of fill in the gaps that it's not seeing on screen, I think is a unique talent. And I thought that Paranormal Activity captured that for me, which is why I thought it was one of the best horror movies that I've seen in the last several years, and even just from that subgenre as well. I thought it was just super effective, and that's why I really enjoy it.
Really is the movie that built the House of Bloom. Blumhouse, as we know it, was built because of the profitability and the success of Paranormal Activity. I think it was shot for like $15,000. It's considered
some ridiculous number, yeah, right?
I think this and Blair Witch are arguably two of the most profitable films that were ever made based on their inevitable box office. But then thinking about the movies that he would make later in the Insidious series, The Purge, the 2018 Halloween film, Get Out, Jordan Peele to work with Bloom, he starts with the simplest, most thrifty of movies, but is able to do it successfully by having the effect that he had on you, Pete, by being able to just bare bones scare the shit out of people. They felt something, and it didn't matter how much the movie cost. It just felt real.
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly not a horror snob. I'll watch, just about anything. I've seen some really cheesy 80s horror movies, and I've enjoyed them for what they are. But and I'm not saying that this is a master class in building suspense. I mean, it does a great job, and I'm not going to put this on a pedestal that it doesn't deserve. And you talk about jump scares. I mean, the film ends on a pretty in-your-face jump scare, essentially. If I had to give it a pitch, it's that if you take this as a standalone film, just if you've seen the sequels, prequels, try and cast it from your mind, because it tries to explain way too much and tries to give meaning and backstory to something that I think with this movie, again, I will say as a compact one-off, it gives you just enough information so that your brain is filling in the rest, but it's not giving you everything step of the way. Like, it's leaving some things to your imagination. It doesn't answer everything that happens in the movie. And for that, I think it was just, for what it is, for the genre, I just thought it was super effective, and it is a solid horror movie. Paranormal Activity delivers the goods, and it's worth a watch.